there's no explanation whatsoever for the kind of poor leadership President Akuffo Addo is offering. And you see, the people of Ghana are very discerning people. They are very stable, calm people. And if you compare the sort of tolerance they've had for this government, they have not had it for previous governments. The people of Ghana have endured things under this government that they did not tolerate under previous governments. So for them to be making persistent demands for a certain kind of action, you must appreciate that things have come to a head. Even in normal times, reshuffles are part of the things that leaders do in order to rejig their government, reinvigorate it, and inject some level of renewed confidence into how government is run. It gives an indication that we want to chart a new path and that the old ways of doing things are no longer tenable. So let us bring in some new faces or move some from places where they may have done well and therefore have shown a capacity to do even better in other places. And also relieve those who have failed to pull their weights of that position so that government will be refocused and deliver the goods for the people. So in normal times, this is done. Because the tendency is for people to get too comfortable and develop some comfort zones which may not be beneficial to the overall running of government. But you see, in times of crisis, it takes on an added dimension. It becomes an imperative in order to begin the work that is necessary to get us out of this crisis. So that is what the people of Ghana have been calling for. President Akuffo Addo has been simply too conservative. He has kept too much faith with the group that has run this country down. And that position is no longer tenable in the eyes of the people of Ghana. That is what they are asking for. You see, his attitude has been that, to the extent that he has confidence in you. And that confidence does not necessarily relate to your ability to perform, but perhaps your loyalty to him. He will not move you even if you commit the most heinous crimes in the position that you are occupying. That has been his attitude. And from day one, that attitude has been on display. And I have always cited the incident that happened at the Flagstaff House on the first day that he took up the mantle of president. That assault on DSP Nankabrus. You see, it gave a certain indication. So an activist of the MPP who had helped in this campaign goes to assault a senior police officer, which is a criminal offense. The president fails to act because there is a gentleman who was loyal to him. It sends a clear signal that there is not a president who will do anything to anybody he trusts to the extent that the person's loyalty can be vouched for. Whether or not the person performs is completely immaterial to you. So you have a situation where our economy has been run down, and you have indicated that we will look at the budget subsequently. Everything shows accuracy. Anecdotal evidence. You know, a visual assessment. You don't even need to look at the figures. You just need to assess people's livelihoods in this country over the last 2 years, 3, 4 years or so, and see that this country has been run aground. In a situation like that, does the president need any prodding to effect changes? Look, I was in Peru, it has emerged that their president, he has not only been impeached, he has actually been arrested pending prosecution. And Peru is not in the state that Ghana is in at the moment. In Sri Lanka, what has happened? The entire government collapsed because of economic difficulties. In other places, we have seen leaders resign voluntarily. Why? In the UK, their economic situation is nowhere near what we have today. Their finance minister announces a few measures that lead the economy into a tailspin. Within 6 weeks of taking office, the prime minister relieved him of his position in order to give confidence to people that she is determined to do something. When that measure failed to engender confidence, the prime minister herself left. And they have a new prime minister. In a space of about a year, they've had 3 prime ministers. And it is not because they are happy that the prime ministership has become something of a musical chairs or that it's become a revolving door. It is because they respect the people they govern. And so when they feel that they've not met expectation, they take the ultimate sacrifice of leaving the position for somebody else to take over in order to breathe new life into the handling of government affairs. But not with President Akuffo Addo. It doesn't matter what you do. First of all, it is bad enough that he has adopted this nepotistic, clannish approach to governance, where he packs his government, especially in key positions, people in key positions, with relatives. Look, even the most craving banana republics in this world do not do what President Akuffo Addo has done. It is bad enough that he did it. He appoints his cousin as finance minister. Now, the man takes office and runs our economy aground, clearly, unmistakably, indubitably. And yet the president refuses to remove him. Even calls by his own MP. I don't know whether Dr. Nyako is one of the 80 MPs who have demanded the man's removal. Perhaps he can clarify when he gets the opportunity. The president still fails to do. As I speak to you, a motion has been brought against the finance minister. Look, that alone.
The president believes that he's performed
creditably
well.
Creditably well.
Exogenous factors.
Creditably well. How can no? Why is he? There's reporting facts or reporting what the president has said, and then there's looking at the facts. The fact that the president has said it does not mean that it is true. And in this instance, even a child in the mother's bosom knows that the president cannot be right when he says that this finance minister has done well. The outcomes do not show it. So it is even disrespectful. Okay, it is disrespectful to the people who are suffering en masse on the streets this morning. Those fighting in church because they cannot afford transport fares. Those who are thinking of how to get breakfast this morning. Those who are struggling to pay their awards fees. Those who have medical bills but cannot settle. Those whose pensions, whose lifetime investments have gone down the drain because of these crude, terrible haircuts that the president has superintended. It is disrespectful to tell them that this finance minister has done well. Everybody knows that he is perhaps the worst performing finance minister in the world. Because today, we have drawn comparisons with Sri Lanka. And Sri Lanka is the telltale sign for a failed economy. If your finance minister superintends an economy that is compared to Sri Lanka, he cannot be said to have done well. So at the very least, remove him. Remove him so that your own party people have confidence in you. Now, your MPs are rebelling. Even in spite of that, you still do not. Why? Touch wood. If Ken Ofori-Atta, for any reason, touch wood, drops dead today, will Ghana grind to a halt? Is President Akuffo Addo telling us that of all the people in the MPP, he's the only person who can be finance minister? Before he became finance minister, were others not occupying that position? When President Akuffo was in power, were there not finance ministers? And when President Akuffo Addo leaves, won't there be finance ministers? So what is this fixation? What is this fixation with this nepotistic and clannish approach to governance, that it must be his cousin at all costs who remains in position? And I can say there's another worrying development. Apart from this unexplained fidelity to hopeless incompetence in the shape of the finance minister, there's also a certain tendency for President Akuffo Addo to tolerate direct misbehavior from his appointees. Look, 2 weeks ago, the president himself caused a budget statement to be read by the finance minister for him in Parliament. And if you look at the budget statement, the very cover page indicates that it is read on behalf of the president. That is the first line in the budget. The budget is read. And we are not in normal times. Even in normal times, you expect that when the budget is read, the budget is perhaps the most significant governmental activity in the year, because a lot of work goes into it. It determines everything in this country. So even in normal times, you expect a certain level of seriousness to be attached to the process. But in times of crisis, where you go and read a budget, which is supposed to provide the blueprint for getting us out of the mess you have plunged us in, you expect additional demonstration of seriousness, even beyond what is normally demonstrated. But what did we see? Within days of reading this budget, cabinet ministers, who also double as MPs, were seen in Qatar.
We are back.
Involved. No. Look, you and I are ordinary citizens. We can go to Qatar. You can even relocate to Qatar and stay there. But cabinet ministers, who are also MPs, some of whom have to lead processes relating to this budget, debate the performance of their sectors, clarify issues that may arise in the debate, and defend the very prescriptions they've put in this budget, were seen jubilating in Qatar. We're seen attending the World Cup. And the president permitted this sort of thing to happen. So even in times of crisis, where you yourself have said that you are doing A, B, C, D to address a problem, you are not demonstrating seriousness. You are not taking the people of Ghana seriously. So I could say there are MPP activists who gain nothing from the MPP being in power apart from perhaps bragging rights that their party is in power. They can argue with the NDC colleagues and brag that their party is in power. They dedicate their time, their life, sometimes their limbs. I'm sure there are people who met with untimely accidents and suffered.
Yes, obviously.
To put the MPP in power so that they govern in a manner that gives them some satisfaction that they contributed to a worthy cause. You let such people down with such abysmal performances. And we have a president who tolerates anything at all, insofar as it is done by an MPP person. How can you allow this? The very week in which you go and lay what is perhaps the most critical budget that you have had to lay in your 6-year tenure, you permit your MPs to abandon the budget process. So in the first 2, 3, 4 days of the debate, only a handful of MPs showed up. There were ministers who had questions pending about their sectors, who were in Qatar joining the Jamboree to watch the World Cup. How can any government behave this way? How can you throw the mandate that people have given you down the drain and trample on it in this indescribable manner? You treat people with such contempt. You don't respect the fact that people woke up and queued and voted for you, gave you the mandate, gave you the resources of this country to manage. You do all of this. And when we speak, Doc is defending the fact that the president will take his time to do. Look, we are not in normal times. In other countries,
the president has given, especially on the finance minister, reasons.
What reasons?
And statements.
What reasons?
And a timeline.
What timeline?
A program.
What program?
A program.
What program?
We all know
I say none of it, with the greatest respect to you, none of it, with the greatest respect to the president, none of it makes sense. Look, the very idea.
I am expecting that by the end of this
month, I'm saying that
by the end of this
with the greatest respect to you,
he will hit to the core.
With the greatest respect to you, and with the greatest respect to the president, that explanation does not make sense. The finance minister should have gone like yesterday. The very fact that he has plunged us into this crisis, the very idea that he even denied that we will go to the IMF and we went, was sufficient grounds for him to have resigned or for the president to have dismissed him. So these timelines, I do not believe it one bit. I will have to see it happen before I believe it, based on the president's track record. Indeed, if everything else failed, the very fact that Dr. Nyako's colleagues,
members of parliament,
insisted that they could not do business with the finance minister was sufficient grounds that to relieve him of his post, because it was clear then that he had lost the confidence of even ruling party MPs and members. And that feeling is widespread in the MPP. So even if you discount opposition criticism, you will not respect the views of the generality of Ghanaians who put you in office. What about the views of your own MPs? So I can see the president's posturing cannot be tolerated. What I sense is that having become president, he does not care anymore. Especially now that he doesn't have any term to contest for again. He simply does not care. I get the impression that because he is barred constitutionally from seeking a third term, he is only whiling away the time to leave office. That is all that he is concerned with.
There's 2 more years.
But yes, he is whiling away time. If indeed he cared about that mandate and he valued it, his actions would prove that he is determined to address the problem that we face.